Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that this is my video series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to help me dive into topics related to living an intentional life. And this week is not unlike every other week. Let me ask you a question. When you think of living an intentional life, when you think of living intentionally, do you think of aiming towards achieving goals? Maybe it's a house you want to live in, or a job you want to work at, or a relationship you want to either create or recreate. Do you think of your intentional life as one in which we arrive at goals of manifestations, if you will? Or do you think of it as the process of moving forwards, and the manifestations are the icing on the cake? What about your own process? Do you think of it as your responsibility? Do you think of it as a co-creative journey? A cooperative journey through this physical universe? What if it was all of that? What if it was the manifestation and the present moment? What if it was, yes, our responsibility and a co-creative experience? That's what this week's spread, I think, is wanting to remind us of, particularly not putting too much weight on the goal, the manifestation, putting not too much weight on our own responsibility, which is there. We are all doing this individually and collectively. This week's spread wants to remind us that not only is this a co-creative life, it's also a life of moment-by-moment experience. And that is the joy of living in this physical universe. So friends, we're going to get into the tarot spread right now. Let me show you the spread. I think this is an absolutely stunning spread. And I think this is a stunning spread not because it's my spread, but because this spread really did co-create itself with me and the creators of the decks, and I think Spirit. Because if you saw the video last week, I mentioned that this spread taught me how it wanted to be laid out. The cards taught me how they wanted to exist and work together in this spread. So this really was probably to date my most co-creative spread. And it's gorgeous. And I'm so pleased at the way it looks. I'm pleased with the way it reads. And I'm pleased that I allowed myself to receive the inspiration to co-create this layout. And if you agree with me that the layout is beautiful because the cards are also beautiful, then you're in luck. There will be a short clip at the end of this video, just like there is every week, that will show you which decks are being used and who the creators are. And, as usual, in the description box below, there will be links if you want to go purchase one or all of these decks on your own. To date, I think, yes, all of these decks are still available. So, if you want them, go and get them. Now, we have the spread, right? We have the oracle cards in the center, which give us the thesis statement for the spread. And then we have 4 inquiry cards around the oracle cards. And for each question on the inquiry card, we have answers from 2 different tarot cards. So, let's start with the thesis statement. Let's start with the oracle cards in the center. Let's take a look. For this spread, we have two sets of oracle cards being used in play for the thesis statement. We have the I Ching cards in the center, there are three of them, and two moon cards. Let's start with the I Ching. The first card on the left of the I Ching is Xiao Kuo. Forgive I don't speak Chinese. I'm trying to pronounce what I'm reading. Yeah, I think it's Xiao Kuo, which is thunder over mountain. Now the I Ching has two tetragrams placed together in a hexagram. And the top tetragram is thunder, the bottom is mountain, so we say thunder over mountain. And what is this trying to remind us of? Thunder over mountain is actually trying to remind us that attention to small details leads us to success. It's trying to remind us that consequential things happen by doing the day-to-day tasks. Yeah? Sweeping dust, raking leaves. Great mountains are built and cut down by small incremental actions. It's also reminding us of right behavior, of doing the right thing, acting ethically, and of courtesy to all beings. So, I'll put that all together, what do we get? It reminds us of two things. One, attention only to our goal is wrong attention. Attention to detail, trusting that the powerful force of intention is moving us toward the goal, is the best way. It's another way of describing mindfulness, right? Raking leaves, washing dishes. Now, doing every action mindfully, attention to detail. Not waiting to get it over with, not hoping to get over this stage so you get to the dessert at the end of the meal, but paying attention to every pea, every bite of the meal as we are eating it, is a metaphor for living an intentional life. Attention to small details brings about great consequences. And it's also reminding us that this is not an experience that we are having by ourselves. Acting ethically means that we are behaving correctly towards everybody. Expressing kindness or loving kindness to all beings. Whether we see them falsely as above us, or we see them falsely as below us, or we see them correctly as equal beings in this physical universe. Be those beings human, be those beings animal, be those beings plant, be those beings what we normally think of as inanimate. We want to treat everything ethically. Right action, doing right by everything and everyone, is what will lead us to success. However, this isn't telling you to fret and worry over every action. It's not telling us or reminding us to feel anxious about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? What am I doing? What am I doing? Am I doing this right? Did I just hurt somebody? What's going on? What's going on? That's not what this is trying to remind us of. That's not being in the present. If we're worrying about this action being correct or incorrect, we're not in the present moment. We're in the future. We're worrying about consequences. This card is reminding us to be present in the moment. And if we're present in the moment, experiencing the fullness of ourselves, What is that fullness? That fullness is love. That fullness is joy. That fullness is well-being. And that fullness is pure awareness. If we are centered in the fullness of ourselves, every action we take will be right action. Because we have an innate sense of ethics, morality. It's innate in each one of us. It's innate in you and it's innate in me. The immoral, the not right actions occur when we act out of fear or anger or mistrust or needing to succeed, needing to be the winner, needing to be better than, needing to be observed and seen. If we're acting from the core of our being, if we're acting from love, we know that we are seen. And anyone who does not see us, that person is not living the fullness of themselves. And we can't change that. We can't force anybody to see us. We can't force anybody to truly accept and acknowledge us. It's not going to happen. No matter how much you scream at somebody, see me, accept me, all we're going to create is resistance on both sides. However, if we live from the fullness of ourselves, we will be seen. We will be acknowledged by those who are also living fully. And those are the most important people for us to be co-creating with. The ones who do not see us can bounce right off of us. And we will live more happily, more successfully. Not successful in the sense of achieving goals or reaching finish lines, but every moment succeeding in being fully ourselves. And part of that is, again, attention to the details. What are we doing right now at this moment? When you're watching me, what are you doing? Are you listening to me? Are you fully watching me? If you're not, if you're distracted by your phone or something else, maybe it would be better for you to attend to that first. Not because I need your attention, but we want to be present to what we have chosen to do in this moment. And if you don't feel you're able to be present to what is happening here right now, maybe this is not the best time to be watching this. We want to be present. I'm not saying go away. I really am not saying go away. I'm saying that whatever we choose to do, we want to be present to it, to be attentive to what we have chosen to do in the moment. Multitasking is a fantasy. And we also want to be sure that we are living rightly, in love, in well-being, and trusting and accepting everyone and behaving rightly towards everyone and everything. The second card reminds us is, Sun. I believe it's Sun. It's wind over wind. We've got two wind tetragrams here together. And you'd think that that's blustery and like the Wizard of Oz tornado coming to get us. But that's not what this is. Now, wind over wind is reminding us that our effect cannot be seen day to day. Sometimes. Often. Actually, almost always. Our effect cannot be seen day to day. Sure, if we knock over a coffee cup, we see that effect. But that's not the effect we're talking about here. We're speaking of the long-term effects. Like wind blowing through the canyons in New Mexico. The wind has carved the rock formations, the stone formations, the limestone formations in New Mexico and Arizona and parts of Colorado exquisitely. But it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a year. It didn't happen over a century. It happened over millennia. And that's the kind of effect we're thinking of here. We don't see what effects we have clearly, fully. We see what's happening right here and right now. We don't see the effects that we have cumulatively. We don't see the influence that we have on people fully. For many reasons. Why do you think that might be true? Why do you think it might be true that we, you, and I do not see fully the influence that we have on other people? Well, probably because, I think, if you have a different idea, let me know in the comments below. I think it's because most of us, almost all of us, are not living vulnerably. Now, when I'm saying vulnerably, I don't mean defenselessly or open for attack so much. It's not about opening yourself up for a knife kind of vulnerability. However, the vulnerability to fully express who we are and what we are feeling. Most of us have social barriers. We have personae. Persona means mask. Yeah, we have personae that we exchange depending on the situation. I have my son persona, I have my teacher persona, I have my YouTube channeler persona, I have my stranger on a subway train persona. We all have our individual persona that we switch out depending on the situation. So we're not fully expressing ourselves anywhere that we exist. In fact, even when we're alone, we may have a persona functioning at that time as well. My I'm alone persona. Now, these are all creations of the ego. And so, because of that persona, we don't see what's going on behind those masks very easily. Have there ever been times when someone has told you that, wow, I really hoped that this gift, for example, you would like this gift, but it looks like you're not that interested in it. And you've thought to yourself, no, I like it. What are they talking about? Or if someone said, why are you so angry? And you thought, did I make you angry? Or am I showing anger to you? We don't really notice the effect that we're having on other people, nor do we notice that we are not fully expressing the effect that we are receiving. The effect that we are receiving, the effect that we are having. Somehow I think I'm not speaking clearly enough. I hope you understand. Yeah? We don't really notice the effect that we're having on each other fully. And sometimes the words we say, we think we're being ignored, they're getting in. And over time, we might notice a change, either for the better or for the worse. This card is also reminding us that influencing people requires ceaseless efforts. And we want to proceed with gratefulness. So, we cannot make someone do anything. We can't make someone change. We can't make someone improve. We can't make someone do anything that they don't want to do. That's why interventions, I don't know if they really work as well as we hope they will. That's why we have things like recalcitrance. We have things like falling off the wagon, as they say. Because we don't actually affect a change until the person is ready to change. Until the person is ready to accept and become something else. Until that happens, whatever we do is going to be temporary at best. Because we have free will. However, we can influence. And we do influence. That's how a lot of us learned how to be who we are. Our parents didn't teach us with words. We observed. We watched. And subconsciously, we absorbed a lot of patterns because our parents repeated the same actions or similar actions over and over and over again. They influenced us, sometimes contrary to what they were trying to teach us. Have you noticed that? That old, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah? We don't get influenced by the words, we get influenced by the actions, but not a one-time action, but a repeated action. Actions that happen over and over, patterns. So if we want to influence somebody, if we want to influence the people around us, we don't do it by telling them what to do. We don't do it by a one-off show of brilliance. We do it by our patterns of living. Which reminds me of something from St. Francis. St. Francis, and I'm misquoting here, I'll try to get the correct quote down in the bottom, but St. Francis said something like this. One of my favorite saints of the Catholic tradition, Roman Catholic tradition. He said something like this. It was kind of like a prayer, I remember. Let me preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. Now, the meaning was, St. Francis wanted to preach the gospel, but only in words when necessary. Which means he wanted to preach the gospel by living the gospel, not telling people about it, not by quoting scripture, but by living what he believed was the spirit of the gospel. And that is the way to teach. It's by time and repeated actions, ways of living. That's how we influence each other. So what have we come to so far? We've got the first card, which reminds us attention to detail, repeated detail, living in the present moment, in love, in gratitude, attending to detail, and also noticing that it's that detail over time that actually causes the great effect, that causes our movement towards some kind of experience of success, of manifestation. And it's also that attention to detail over time which influences those around us, especially when we do so living in gratitude, in love, in joy, in well-being, and pure awareness. And then we get to the third card. What is that third card? The card is, I believe, P. Not something we do in the bathroom, P, but I think it's P. Maybe pi, but I think it's P. And that's water over earth. So water over earth, what do we think? Rivers, lakes, maybe waterfalls, but rivers and lakes are what come to my mind. And that's exactly what this is pointing towards. Now, drops of water gather together to become a lake. So again, we have that idea of the little things coming together to make something big. But in this card, it's not the actions so much as the people. It's joining together. It's individual people joining together to work, to create, to live, to be, which gives the greater influence, which creates a greater whole, which makes a universe, which makes a co-creative universe. Holding together in community brings us success. It's not only our individual lives, because none of this is an individual creation. This is all a co-creative experience. So, moving together as a collective, with our tribe, with our peeps, as they will, moving together is the way to achieve success. And this card also reminds us of one more thing. Remember how attention to detail, doing the action repetitively over time achieves success? Here we also have that idea of repetition, because constancy and strength of being will draw people to us. So, living our co-creative lives is not necessarily one in which we go and try to find our people, try to find our tribe. Have you ever felt like you were isolated, like you have been placed in the wrong family, your friends don't understand you, the people you work with don't get you, you haven't found your tribe, you haven't found your people? Have you ever felt like that? I know I have. I felt like that many times in my life. And you might say I might be feeling that a little bit right now. However, the way to move past that, to move beyond that, to find our tribe, to find our people, is not necessarily desperately searching for them. Especially when we come to desperately. The idea of desperately doing anything is a stance of resistance, which breaks us, not cuts us off, but reduces our access to the powerful flow of intention. Now, every time we're striving to do something, we're desperately trying to do something, we're cutting ourselves off to a great extent from the powerful force of intention. Instead, if we open ourselves to the flow of our intention, moving with our intention, and we do so consistently, and we do so with strength of being, with strength of character, our people will come. Our people will come. We will draw them to us. Which is the other part of this moment by moment mindful, intentional living. It's attending to detail, noticing the effect we can have on others, realizing if we want to influence others, it takes repeated action, repeated being, living in gratitude, in connection, and if there are no people around us, those people will come if we are consistent, if we live from the fullness of our being. So, attention to detail and recognizing that this is a co-creative experience and people will come. And when they do come, we want to treat them right. Now we have two more cards, one above and one below. The one above is the waxing gibbous. The waxing gibbous. The waxing gibbous is the one that's moving towards a full moon. And it's the card of manifestation. It's the card to manifest. We're almost there. So this card is reminding us that that our intentions are close to completion. Well, there is no completion. Are close to manifestation. And we have the ability, we have the resources within us to achieve, to manifest what we want. What we want to do is strengthen our belief and our gifts. What does that mean? We want to believe in the gifts that we have. We want to believe in our resources. We want to believe that we have the ability to manifest. Sometimes we move closer to, we move even closer to, we continue moving closer to some kind of manifestation, be it a relationship, be it a job, be it a work of art. We get closer, and we keep noticing how much time it's taking. And as we notice how much time it's taking, we start to doubt our ability. Maybe it's because I'm not able. Maybe it's because I'm not I don't have what I need. Maybe it's because I'm not clever enough. And then those doubts start coming in. And just as we are about to arrive at a manifestation, it starts to wither because we cut ourselves off from moving fully into the realization of that manifestation. So the waxing gibbous is reminding us, have belief. Have belief in ourselves. Because it's a moment-by-moment thing. It's a moment-by-moment experience. And sometimes those moment-by-moment experiences start to allow us to create doubt for ourselves. They don't create doubt. We create doubt for ourselves. Because we're so attached to the manifestation rather than, what am I doing now? We're so expecting and hoping for that manifestation to cause joy that we forget that we want to be joyful now. And so the waxing gibbous is here to remind us too, we have what we need. We're getting close. Remember that and enjoy where we are right now. Because if we don't enjoy where we are right now, when we get there, if we get there, we'll get there. But when we get there, we're not going to enjoy it there either. Enjoying every step of the way there is what is going to make the fullness of the manifestation so much more enjoyable. And then the card below is the Leo card, my sun sign. The Leo card, the card of the heart. Now the Leo, the fiery heart, courage, passion, stubbornness, but the good stuff too, yeah? Playfulness. The Leo card here is reminding us that being bold and being confident are the way to keep going. Not being bold in opposition to fear. Not being bold in ignorance, but being bold. Recognizing that we don't have anything to fear. That kind of boldness. And when fear arises, and it will, living an intentional life, there will always be fear that will arise to some degree or another. And we want to pay attention to that. We don't want to ignore that. We don't want to repress that because that's a way to have it grow and explode in our faces later on. But we want to recognize it and, as much as we can, on our own or with help, sometimes we need professional help, but getting the help we need when we need it or trying to deal with it on our own, allowing it, finding the way for us, our method of allowing that fear to dissipate so that our innate boldness can show itself again. We want to find our boldness and our confidence that we have everything that we need to create what we want and what we believe in. It's a card of leading by example, which again echoes those I Ching cards, right? Yeah, we lead by example, we influence by example. That's what the Leo card is all about. It's also being in the flow of attraction. Now, being in the flow of attraction is just another way of saying in the flow of the powerful force, the powerful current of intention. So, trusting that we have all that we need, that we are all that we need. And then below, remembering that we can be bold, we can be confident, and we can trust in the flow of our lives. And we can influence others. We can lead them by example rather than by tying them up and dragging them by a leash or poking them and making them move. That's not the way we work with other people. That's not the way we co-create. Yeah, we move with each other and we influence each other with open hearts, with pure hearts, with love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. So friends, we've got 4 questions to ask of this very meaningful central spread. Let's take a look at them. Let me be frank. These 4 questions, well, let me see. Let me rephrase that. Let me be a little bit more specific. Not all 4 of them. 3 of these questions surprised me. 2 of the 3 challenged me. And one of the 2 that challenged me was this one. What are my boundaries? Now, what are your boundaries? What do you think of when you think of boundaries? I think there are at least 2 different ways to interpret this. There are things that we consider healthy boundaries, yeah, where we protect parts of ourselves that may be less able to sustain scrutiny or criticism or even the slightest violence from what we experience as an outside. Those are what I think most of us would consider healthy boundaries. Now, for example, the wounds that we have, we might not be ready to show them to other people, and if other people see them and remark on those wounds or those habits, we might feel more wounded. And so we protect some of those areas of our psyche, of our hearts, of our minds, of our spirits. And those can be healthy boundaries. There are unhealthy boundaries as well. There are boundaries that are not to protect the parts that still maybe need healing, but rather the boundaries of fear, the boundaries of expectation of violence. Now the barricades, the ones where we just keep people out, whoever they are. Now a healthy boundary would keep out a violent person, someone who is verbally violent. A healthy boundary would keep them out. Now they're here to protect us, to a degree, as much as we need to be protected in any given situation. And that could change situation to situation, right? There are times when our boundaries can be lower, more penetrable, more porous. And there are times when our healthy boundaries might need to be a little higher or a little thicker. When we got somebody who is just a constant complainer or a nagger or a criticizer or a very, very negative person or a violent person, verbally violent or even physically violent, we might have to have a thicker, higher boundary, which would protect us. And that might still be a healthy boundary. However, there are times when those boundaries become unhealthy. They isolate us. Have you ever found yourself protecting yourself or in the habit of protecting yourself so much that even friendly people can't get in? I've done that. And I sometimes fall back on that, frankly. I've done that in the past. I had a friend 20 years ago who said that she felt that I was not letting her in. Like I had series of walls. And I would let her into 1 or 2 walls, but there were other walls that I wouldn't let her into. And part of that is because I am not fully acceptable to parts of society. Now, there are some aspects of my life which are potentially marginalizable, able to be marginalized by many parts of many different societies. And so, to protect myself in society, I had, from a very early age, built up walls. And some of those walls are still there in many areas of my life, particularly professionally. Maybe not so much here, but professionally, yes. And some of those walls, I acknowledge, are unhealthy. And some of those walls actually might be doing me harm because people can't get in. Have you ever noticed that you do any of that? That you have created walls that are not only protecting you from the negative, but are also keeping you isolated from what might be something very positive, something very in line with the powerful force of your intention. So there are different ways of looking at the word boundaries. Defensive and offensive, maybe. But the goal, I think, if there is anything like a goal in an intentional life, and which I don't believe there actually is a goal, but our hope, our desire in living an intentional life is to eventually allow all of those boundaries to fade, to self-actualize and be ourselves fully in this world, in this physical universe, to fully embody our spirit and let it shine. That is the hope of everyone leading an intentional life, hoping to self-actualize. So, what are our boundaries now and generally? And here we have two answers to the question, as usual. One is the Six of Swords, which was a little bit difficult for me to understand at the first moment. And the second is the King of Pentacles, which in the El Goliath deck was a tiger, yeah, with flowers all around him. Very interesting. And moths, I think. Moths as well. And then from the Gorgon's Tarot, the round one, we have the Six of Swords, which were six swords and wavy water and a boat and a sun or a moon rising or setting off in the distance. So let's start with the Six of Swords, because I think that's where the boundaries really come in. Six of Swords is the card of transition, moving from one thing to another. We often think of it as moving from the choppy water into the calm, smooth, sunlit water of the future, moving from the stormy seas to smoother seas. We think of it as change, of the journey from conflict into peace, from anxiety into trust, perhaps. And it's releasing baggage. But you notice in this, not so much in this tarot, but in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, if you remember that image, what do we see? We see a ferry person, a person ferrying the boat, and two passengers, one adult and one child in the boat, and six swords in the boat, and they're moving forward. So they're carrying their swords with them. And in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, swords are mental air signs, yeah? There are thoughts and the ways we communicate. And usually they are negative. They indicate negative thoughts, and thought as a negative thing. And in the Six of Swords, they're carrying those potentially very negative thoughts along with them. They're carrying their baggage with them. So this is what reminded me of that. As we transition, we want to recognize that we are still carrying our boundaries along with us. Wherever we go, we carry our boundaries with us. We move with our boundaries. Yeah, it's a movable feast of boundaries that we live with. So even though we're moving from here to there, we're making a transition, we've still got a lot of baggage that we're carrying with us. So what are my boundaries? This card isn't really answering that question, but asking us to look at where our boundaries are. Because we are moving along with them. They move with us until we're ready to let them go, let them pass, release them. And maybe we're not ready to release all of them at this moment. And if you're not able to release all of them at this moment, if I'm not ready to release all of them at this moment, that does not mean that either you or I are failures. We are not failing at this intentional life thing. It's just that we're not ready yet. We're moving in the direction of being ready. We want to trust that. We want to believe in that. We have the resources and the ability to release these boundaries. But maybe not quite yet. We might still need to do some healing. But as we move forward, what do we want to move into? We want to move into the King of Pentacles, which is, I think, the end of all the small cards. Now, all the pips, all of the minor arcana. The last card is, for me, the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles is the last before we transition back into the Ace of Wands. So the King of Pentacles is the culmination of it all. It's the physical manifestation of everything. All of the passions, all of the emotions, all of the thoughts, all of the physical stuff. He's got it all. Or she's got it all. Or they've got it all. Now the tiger's got it all. The Father of Roses is the name of the card, the subtitle of the card on the El Goliath deck. The card of wealth and security. So that's the direction we want to be heading towards. Security. The acknowledgement and recognizing of abundance. Being powerful and disciplined, which is an echo of those first cards, right? Discipline, power. Doing the day-to-day, moment-by-moment tasks is a disciplined practice. And that's what the King of Pentacles does. It's enterprising and establishment. It's a movable establishment, certainly. Yeah? It's not something that's going to fix us to the ground so that we become immobile or inflexible. But established in who we are. Able to work with anyone. Able to be open to anyone. Be able to influence anyone. That's the direction we're moving towards. Recognizing that we have boundaries right now. And as we have those boundaries limit our ability to fully become the King of Pentacles. So how do you think, how can you move closer to being your embodiment of the King of Pentacles? Be it a male king, a female king, or a non-gendered king, whatever. How do we move past what is hindering us? How do we let the boundaries fade, to dissolve, so that we can live fully as ourselves, as the King of Pentacles? I don't think the cards are answering that for us, but asking us to recognize that that's what we want to do. Recognize our boundaries, and that they are, to some extent, limiting us, as they do protect us. So we want to move in the direction where we don't need them as much. Not now. Not now. I'm not saying to go out and strip yourself bare in the plaza, unless you're ready to become St. Francis. I'm not saying to go out into the town square and strip yourself bare, both literally and figuratively. But do the work. That's what we want to do. Do the day-to-day work of being able to dissolve our boundaries. Healthfully, securely, ably. Let's look at the second question. Also a challenging one for me. The second question is, what's the joke? And why is that challenging to me? It's challenging to me because this all seems very serious to me. And here I am laughing, right? But it does all seem very serious to me. All of this living an intentional life. I sometimes get immersed in the importance of this topic. Now my passion overwhelms me. And this question kind of pokes fun at me because of that. And I wonder if it pokes fun at you as well. What is the joke? What is the joke of this life? Not in an ironic kind of Saturday. Do you know Saturday Night Live? The long series of late night Saturday night comedy. Yeah? Not in that kind of what's the joke, but more in the way of the Buddhist sense or the Taoist sense of what's the joke. The laughing Buddha. What's the joke? Well, we have two answers to that question. The first one is the Emperor. The second one is the Seven of Swords. So what's the joke? Now we come from these boundaries that we've been asked to recognize. And perhaps are not our friends all of the time. And definitely should not be our longtime companions. Let's try to remember that. They might be our friends at the moment, but we don't want to make them our life partners, if we can avoid it. So what's the joke? The joke is, one, the Emperor. We have a very beautiful card, but in a sense, I think, symbolically, fairly simple card. Now we got this figure looking like a woman to me, which is cool. I like that. A woman emperor sitting on her or their throne with an orb, a shield in one hand and an orb in another. Typical imagery. But there's nothing very complex going on here, really. She's got a cross similar to the Hierophant, which is interesting. But there's not a lot going on in here. It's a very simple emperor image to me. Which is good, because that's the joke. The joke is that you, I, we are the emperor. We are the emperor. So why do we need these boundaries if we're the emperor? That's the joke. We don't recognize how powerful we actually are. We don't recognize how much we can actually create in the world, for good or ill. And living an intentional life, we would be creating for the good. Living resistantly, we will often turn to creating things which are resistant and the children of resistance, which can wound us and can wound people around us as well. But we are the emperor. We are our own authority. We are able to create structure for ourselves. And one of those structures is the barriers that we create. We're also the active creators in this physical world. Now, the active creators of form in form is what I like to call it. The active creators of form within form. And we make stuff in the context of stuff. Now, the Empress is more the receptive creator. Now, clearing space and allowing things to grow and flourish and multiply. Yeah? Spreading energy around so that things become lush and green and vibrant and healthy. The Emperor is one who finds a box and makes something in it, or creates a box and then creates stuff to put in it. Yeah? The active creators of form in form. We are that. We can do that. That's what we were born to be in this physical world. That's the joke. We already are beyond the King of Pentacles. We are so much more than that. We are so much more powerful than that. As eternal beings having a human experience, we are so much more than that. And still, what do? We do what's right next to the Emperor. We do the Seven of Swords. And what do we see in this image? We see a snake coming to steal an egg. Yeah? Basically eating the egg right where they are. The Seven of Swords, in the subtitle for this in the El Goliath deck is Thief in the Night. We are strong, we are powerful, we create, and still we think we have to steal. Still we think we have to get away with something to create what we want. Still we think we have to be deceptive and we have to be clever to get what we want. And unfortunately, it's all of those thoughts of needing to be deceptive, needing to be sneaky, needing to be clever to get what we want, all of those resistant thoughts. What I want, I cannot have. All of those resistant thoughts cut us off from the powerful flow of intention. That's the joke. We have all of this power and we cut ourselves off from that. For ego reasons, for fear reasons, for unpleasant experience reasons. We could have had experiences in which we thought we had something that we wanted and it didn't appear, and so we misinterpreted that as what I want is taken away from me. Rather than noticing that, oh, this is what I thought I wanted, but clearly that isn't what I wanted because it didn't fully manifest. A lot of the times we misinterpret what we are experiencing and we turn it into something fear-based, something resistant. And that's normal. I do it too. When I just recently lost my job, I was shocked, I was hurt, I was in pain, I thought that I was being betrayed and all of those things. And that was not the only time. I mean, I did theater. There are lots of times in theater, especially when we're young, that we get these feelings that that should have been my part or all of that. You know, we feel like we're being rejected. However, the truth is that if it was my part, I would have gotten it. We put all of the responsibility on other people and not accept responsibility, not in the sense of it's my fault that I didn't get the part, it's my fault that I got fired, but rather that that part is not me. I am not that part. That part is not part of my flow of intention. The job I was in was no longer part of my path anymore. I am moving beyond that. That's what an emperor would recognize, that this piece of land that is leaving my empire is no longer part of the path of my empire. That piece of land is going to come in when we are a match. And still, we get the feeling that we've got to steal what we want. Even though we are so powerful, the joke is that we still try to connive and wheedle our way into things that may actually be ours, but we think we have to do it deceptively. We don't, and that's what the joke is. Instead, we can do what the Ching Oracle reminds us of, day by day actions. Living right, living and behaving correctly, will draw what we want and what is correct for us and what is best for us to us. Let's take a look at the third question. This question is not so challenging for me. What can I experience more fully? And one thing that we could experience more fully is our boundaries, right? But what do you think? What could we experience more fully? Yeah? We want to experience the present moment, each task that we are doing, every moment more fully. Mindfulness. But the answers to this question, one is the Seven of Swords again, but in reverse. And the other is justice. And you'll notice that the person in the Gorgon's Tarot, the round one, from the Seven of Swords, is looking away from justice. So, my interpretation of this pairing of cards is that the Seven of Swords, again, getting away with stuff. Trying to I've lost it for just a moment. Okay, so getting away with stuff, being deceptive, impulsiveness, but in reverse. So what does that mean? We don't, because there is a positive side of the Seven of Swords as well. Seven of Swords could also be going your own way, acting cleverly, yeah, finding your own path, finding your own solution, not following the crowd. All of those wonderful things can also be part of the Seven of Swords. But here we have it in reverse. And so we definitely don't have that. We're resisting going our own way. We're resisting going on our own path and instead trying to make things happen deceptively, trying to get away with something, trying to get something that we might consciously or unconsciously believe that might not entirely be ours. Actual thievery, emotional thievery, psychological thievery, copyright infringement, yeah? All of those things where we try to take what's not ours. And we want to experience that more fully. Why would we want to experience that more fully? Because we keep doing it because we keep repressing it. We justify it. We say, I had to do it. I'm doing it because I need to live. I'm doing it because I need to get this. I want to have that. I want to experience that. So I need to be clever. I have to be crafty. And if I didn't have to be, I wouldn't be. So we repress all of the emotions that we have about those actions, saying that I'm justified. And we're really not. We're really, really, really not. Caveat. Let's give a literary example. Jean Valjean. Jean Valjean from Les Miserables. People who read the book or know the musical or the movie probably know Jean Valjean. Around the 1790s in France, around the time of the Revolution, he and his family were starving. And so he broke a window to get bread, a loaf of bread. Now, at that time, the loaf of bread was probably more than just like a small loaf of Wonder Bread, was probably a huge loaf of bread. Not just a couple of, not a cheap thing, but not a jewel, not the crown jewels of the realm. Yeah? And his family was starving. So he broke a window and stole bread. Can we excuse that behavior? Yes. Was he excused? No. He was sent to prison for an inordinately long amount of time. He was tortured. He was treated inhumanely especially for such a small act. And even if he weren't sent to prison, would he still deserve punishment? I would say no. No, he would not deserve punishment. Punishment is not part of living an intentional life. Living intentionally, living fully as eternal spirit in this physical human body is not the life of doling out punishment and taking an eye for an eye. There are times when we do things that we think that we need to do. Well, we do things that we think we have to do to survive. And sometimes we think that we have to act criminally to get what we want to survive. And that's because we have been oppressed by society. And that is all true. That is all true. And so, people who commit crimes should not be punished. That's not what this is talking about. It's not saying that you should be punished for doing something that was tricky or clever or sneaky to get what you think you needed. However, it is saying that we want to experience that action fully. That's what we want to experience fully. We want to experience those times when we are doing things that we think are crafty and clever or manipulative. Because if we can truly experience them, we might be able to find the root cause. And maybe that root cause is not actually society. Maybe there's another root cause somewhere in there. Some misunderstanding or some misconception, or perhaps some unhelpful or hurtful action that we have been doing to ourselves or others, which has led us to this point of doing something that we know is perhaps morally wrong or ethically incorrect. And so we want to fully experience those things if we can take it. There are times in our lives when we can't take it, when we cannot fully experience those things because that would lead to too much trauma. Sometimes there are times when full, deep, absolute self-awareness is going to lead to some trauma. For some of us. Not all of us. For some of us. And if that is the case, we need to get help. However, right now I'm speaking to the rest of us who could really do with a little bit more self-awareness. I think most of society is in that category. We could do with much more self-awareness, especially when we think that we're getting something, when we're being clever. And if we can be fully aware of that, then we can turn and face justice. Again, this is not the justice of punishment. I'm not saying you need to turn and face your punisher. Face the judge. That's not what we're saying here. Justice, not the judge, justice. Justice. Equality and fairness. Truth. Truth, I think, is the core of this card. Truth. We can turn and face the truth. We can turn and face our behavior as what it is. Not blaming ourselves, but recognizing why I'm doing this. why I feel like I need to do this, and perhaps is there a more equitable way of getting what I want? Or perhaps recognizing that that's not what I really want. I want something else that actually is mine. It's the card of equilibrium and balance as well. Now, trying to be sneaky, trying to be clever is not being balanced. And we want to reclaim our balance. And if we can fully experience who we are, what we are doing in the moment, we might be able to turn towards our own balance, our own equilibrium point. Equity, our internal equity and our flow of equity, and creating equity around us, creating justice around us, working for justice rather than working against injustice. The more we fight, I believe, the more we fight against injustice, the more power we give to that injustice. Rather, the more we work for justice, the more we work for honoring each other, lifting each other, the more we work for our beauty in diversity and multitudinous expression of life, the more powerful we all will be together as that group, the tribe of co-creating people, which was in that third I Ching card. So, what can I experience more fully? We want to experience more fully when we think we are getting away with something. Experience it more fully so we can feel what it is we are doing. We can feel the feelings that we are feeling that made us do what we are doing. And perhaps work on those feelings, work on those beliefs that made us feel like we were without power, without ability, without resources to do what we want to do, to be who we want to be, to love who we want to love. There's always a way. There's always a way that we can find it if we are open to ourselves. That's what we want to experience more fully. And as we experience that more fully, we will naturally turn towards justice. Let's look at that last question. This is the last question. What is the easier way? What do you think? What is the easier way? Where have we come? We've come from recognizing our boundaries and wanting to open up, recognizing that we really are powerful. We don't have to be clever to get away with stuff, but we do want to experience when we are trying to get away with stuff so that we can move towards justice. And now, what's the easier way? The easier way is the King of Wands in reverse and the Karmic Soul Tribe, which is one of the extra cards from the El Goliath deck. So, the first card, the King of Wands in reverse. Why the heck is this card in reverse? It's in reverse because right now we're not recognizing it. We're not recognizing our King of Wandsiness, our King of Wands potential. So what we want to do, the easier way is to turn this card right side up. To recognize that we have the energy. Because that's all that we are. We are spirit through energy manifesting as matter. We are energy. Each atom of each of our cells is energy. We are energy. And so is the King of Wands. It's the card of passion. We have so much passion within us. It's amazing. You would be astounded to witness the passion that is within you. But most of the time we don't recognize it. We've got it buried beneath boundaries. It's inspired action, doing what we feel inspired to do. And it's a card of adventure. Being able to do what we want to do out in the world. We have the energy, we have the passion, we have the ability to create and lead. We have the ability to lead. That's who we are. And again, going back to the third I Ching card, yeah? Living right, we draw our tribe to us. That's the easier way. Embodying the King of Wands, we let our passion and our flame of energy burst into flame. And that light draws other people in towards us. Because it's not the harsh light of aggression. It's the light of truth, justice, love, well-being, pure awareness, creativity. So we embody that first, and then we get the soul tribe. Yeah, this is our soul tribe. Finding, or sometimes leaving, groups. Sometimes if we're in the wrong group, if we're in a group that does not see us, that does not recognize us, that's the time to leave that group. If we are being ourselves fully. Not because we're hiding behind walls, if that's not the reason that they're not seeing us. If they're not seeing us because we're hiding, then there is that. But if we're being ourselves, if we are open, if we are vulnerable, and they still don't see us, they still don't recognize us for the amazing human that we are, then it's time to leave that group. But the soul tribe card reminds us that the easier way is to allow that group to come and embrace us. So finding the tribe. Finding our group that lets us be who we are, validates us, and loves us for who we are. Now, validation. Living an intentional life, we don't really need validation. If we need validation, then we've got to work on ourselves. The validation, the real validation that is the most important, comes from within. And if other people are not recognizing us as who we are, then it's time to leave their presence. If we need other people's validation to feel full, to feel accepted, then we've got resistance going on there because of that need. However, when we find our group, they will validate us because it's natural. They cannot not validate us. Because we are in this, doing this together. As they validate us, I validate you. It's like a mirror. Yeah? My validation is a reflection of your validation. And I see you. And I recognize you as you are. Hiding some of you, I recognize you within that. And that's what being in your soul tribe is like. It's a card of spirit guides as well. Remember, we're not only here as humans, we are eternal, spiritual beings having this human experience. So we also have our spirit tribe too, whatever you want to describe that as. It's love and unity. That's the easier way. Finding our group, finding our tribe, allowing ourselves to be our leader of our portion of our tribe. Our passion, with our energy, with our inspired action and our sense of adventure. What are we going to do now? Not next, but now. What am I going to do now? And pay attention to that. Enjoy the detail of that. That's what this whole spread is trying to remind us of. Because this is a co-creative experience. And it's not an experience of reaching goals or finish lines, of something out there, that manifestation that's coming to us. And those things are coming to us, sure, but that's not where our attention wants to be. Our attention wants to be here, now, the only thing that exists, and being open to it. The details, what am I doing now? What am I doing now? Enjoying that, the adventure of sweeping and raking leaves. If we can do that, if we can find the adventure in raking leaves, we've got it covered. What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. And in just a moment, there will be a little video showing you who created which cards. So stay tuned for that. And friends, hit the like button if any of this resonated with you. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so that you get notification of when I upload videos. And share this with anyone you think might get value out of it. I'd love to see this go out into the world. And as always, I really do want to hear from you. Lay a comment on me below, whatever you think. I'd love to hear from you. I'd like to engage with you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.